Before this video officially starts, since it's Black History Month, I want to give a shout out to a Black booktuber in every video that I will be uploading this month. And for today's video, I want to give a shout out to Jalisa over at Bounded and Bookmarked. I first knew about Jalisa on Mel Reid's channel. They were doing reading sprints, and I really loved Jalisa's energy, and the books that she reads are also amazing. So I will leave the link down below to Jalisa's channel so you can go ahead and check her out. And I just feel like it was kind of rushed. It is definitely not an easy YA book to read. The writing style could be boring at times. As a Marie Lu fan, then Desi decided to be annoying and stupid and immature again, reading from high school love story. He also despised the government. I didn't expect to talk a lot. What is up, reading buddies? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, hello, this is Polly, a 24-year-old Filipino bookish content creator who advocates for POC written books. So if you're into that, then don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for all the bookish content that you wouldn't want to miss. I also have my Instagram, Twitter, and book blog links down below for all the exclusive bookish content that you wouldn't see here. 30 seconds filming and I'm already sweating. But anyway, enough of all those shenanigans. Let us move straight into the video and keep on watching to see what Polly read in January. I actually started pretty late with my reading journey this year. I didn't pick up or read any book until January 5, and I finished that first book on January 10. But to be fair, for the first 2 weeks of January, I was really busy spending a lot of time with my family, so there's that. Nevertheless, I still think that January was a really good reading month for me because I did not give any book lower than a 3-star rating. And here are all the books. No, actually, these are not all the books that I read in January, but these are just the physical books that I was able to read in January, and then I listened to one audiobook. So without further ado, let us now dive right into the books that I read in January. The first book that I read in January was a romance book, and it was Vintage Love by Agay Llanera. Vintage Love is about a 26-year-old TV executive named Chrissy who is in dire need of a makeover since her wardrobe mostly consisted of ratted shirts, and her grueling schedule at work leaves no room for a social life. And the worst part of all is that she's still hung up on the evil ex who left her 5 years ago. When her fashionable grand aunt passes away, she leaves a room full of vintage stuff, and suddenly the shy stylista inside Chrissy gradually resurfaces, and later on she feels like she's making progress. She's already dressing up and taking care more of herself, and she also meets a new love interest named Vince. But then the ghost of her past catches up with her, threatening to push her back into depression. Now, I actually kind of liked this book. I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. It's just an okay book for me, and I just feel like it was kind of rushed. But some of the things that I really liked about this book are the friendship dynamics, the really swoon-worthy female and male main characters. And it also kind of made me miss pre-pandemic life because of all the thrift shopping and their Boracay trip. The second book that I read in January was a historical fiction, and it was The Weight of Our Sky by Hanna Alkaf. And before I move on to the story of this book and my thoughts on it, I would just like to mention first the content warnings, which include racism, graphic violence, on-page death, OCD, and anxiety triggers. The Weight of Our Sky is about a music-loving teen with OCD named Melati during the historic race riots in 1969 in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. This book basically follows the riots and Melati's journey in trying to find a way to be with her mother again in the midst of all the chaos. I absolutely have no words on how heavy I felt when I was reading this book. It is definitely not an easy YA book to read, as it really tackles a lot of racism, violence, and mental health issues. This book must be read with so much preparation and with precautions, as Alkaf's writing is really vivid. The panic attacks and the loneliness feel so real. Anyway, I really loved this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and it's absolutely one of my favorite books in January, probably in 2021, and probably for my whole life. The next book that I finished in January was a YA contemporary, and it was Saints and Misfits by S.K. Ali. Now, I honestly don't know how to describe this book, so I'm just gonna read off the synopsis from the hardcover flap. There are 3 kinds of people in my life. 1. Saints. Those special people moving the world forward. Sometimes you gaze right through them, or at least I do. They're in your face so much you can't see them, like how you can't see your nose. 2. Misfits. People who don't belong. Like me. The way I don't fit into that brand new family, or in the leftover one composed of mom and my older brother, mama's boy Muhammad. Also, there's Jeremy and me. Misfits. Because although, alliteratively speaking, Jana and Jeremy sound good together, we don't go together. Same planet, different worlds. But sometimes worlds collide and beautiful things happen, right? 3. Monsters. Well, monsters wearing saint masks, like in Flannery O'Connor's stories. Like the monster at my mosque. People think is holy, untouchable, but nobody has seen under the mask. Except me. Saints and Misfits is another book with heavy topics. Content warnings include sexual assault, death of a loved one, and a romantic comment. By the way, these content warnings are based off on Fadwa's content warnings database. I will leave a link down below so you could also bookmark it into your browsers. Now, I actually really liked Saints and Misfits. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It has a very straightforward narrative, like you're reading from someone's diary. The writing style could be boring at times, but it would pick up at some parts by either dropping a revelation or having a really emotional scene. The next book that I finished in January was a sci-fi dystopian, and it was Skyhunter by Mary Lou. Now, Skyhunter is a book about Talene, who was a striker, or basically a warrior from Mara, the only free nation in the world, and her journey in fighting off the ghosts from the Carranza Federation. Carranza Federation was actually the one who invaded or occupied all the other nations. Talene is actually just an outsider from Mara because her home has already been occupied by the Carranza Federation, but even though she's just an outsider in Mara, her dedication to helping Mara to stay as a free nation is still really commendable. She proved this even further when a mysterious prisoner from Carranza was brought to Mara's front. Talene sensed that there is more to this mysterious prisoner than what meets the eye, but they don't really know if this prisoner is just a spy sent from the Federation. but Talene still took a risk in finding out more about this prisoner. Then the wild, adventurous, and action-packed journey starts from that. As a Marie Lu fan, I can say that Marie Lu's writing style is still something that can still put me at the edge of my seat. This book has been mysterious enough that it kept me reading page after page, chapter after chapter. It has all the emotions that I wanted to see in a sci-fi dystopian, and she did really well in building the world, introducing the characters, and making the reader build up so much anticipation on what's gonna happen next. And if it isn't obvious yet, I totally loved this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I finished in January was another romance book, and it was I Believe in a Thing Called Love by Maurene, and I read this for the Blu-ray book club. Now, I Believe in a Thing Called Love by Maurene is about Desi, who is basically your perfect senior high school student body president, soccer team varsity star, and she believes that these things are what's gonna get her into her dream university, which is Stanford. The only thing that Desi doesn't have and has never had is a boyfriend. And in order for her to get a boyfriend, she decided to seek guidance from Korean dramas that her father has been obsessively watching for years. And she actually called this her K-drama Steps to True Love. We just follow Desi as she goes through each step on her list, and we'll see in the end if it's effective enough to get her a boyfriend. So I actually enjoyed reading I Believe in a Thing Called Love, but 80% of the time was spent being annoyed with Desi. During the first half of the book, I thought that I was gonna DNF it, but then good things actually happened on the other half, so I really enjoyed that part. Then, Desi decided to be annoying and stupid and immature again towards the end of the book. I ended up giving the book a 3 out of 5 stars. Even if Desi is annoying, I can say that the romance part was really done well in this book. I love how I was giddy so much reading from high school love story. But Luca is chef's kiss. And the last book that I finished reading in January was a nonfiction book, and it was actually the book of the month for my nonfiction book club, and it was Educated by Tara Westover. Educated is Tara Westover's coming-of-age memoir. In here, she tells the story of how she grew up in the mountains of Idaho, away from the mainstream society. During her childhood years, she would prepare for the end of the world with her family. She helped her mother, who was a midwife and a helper, and she also helped her father and brothers working in the junkyard. She spent all those years working instead of getting a formal education. The thing is, her father doesn't really believe that getting a formal education can get you somewhere in life. He also despised the government, as well as seeking professional help from doctors and nurses. And in this book, we also get to see how one of Tara's older brothers started to get violent, but none of their parents actually did something to address the violence. But towards the half of this book, Tara starts to educate herself. She literally tutored herself for her to be able to get into Brigham Young University, or BYU, and getting into that university or finally getting a formal education transformed Tara's life. Educated by Tara Westover is the best memoir I have read yet. My experience in reading it was unlike any other. I tapped a lot of pages, and there were so many parts that stuck with me and resonated with me. A lot of good things that happened in Tara's life were mostly a shot in the dark, but she still managed to get into a university and to 2 other universities after that because of her perseverance and resilience. And I think with a bit of luck too. I love how Tara wasn't afraid to show us her weaknesses and her dark times alongside the good times. This is now one of my favorite books. I absolutely loved it, and I highly recommend it to everyone. It is an absolute 5 out of 5 star read for me, and I love it. I didn't expect to talk a lot in this reading wrap up, but it turns out I got a lot to say on the books that I read in January. So to finally wrap up this video, I think that overall January was a good reading month for me, and I really hope that you read good books in January too. Let me know in the comments your favorite book in January, and if you have already read anything from the books that I read from that month, or if you're planning to read any of these books that I mentioned. I hope you see me again on my next video, and I hope to see you too. Read to grow, grow to fly. This has been Polly, darling.